North Carolina is a place that's near and dear to my heart. I attended the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and got to know the people of that great state. Encapsulated in those streets is a rich history. A history that has moved this great country and led to changes that have profoundly impacted every single one of us.
That if America is to remain a first-class nation, she can no longer have second-class citizens.
In the early 1950s, it was impossible for a young African-American boy to become an NBA player. But thankfully, basketball pioneers like Jackie Moore and Alvin Addles both overcame many obstacles to pave the way for future generations of African-American players in our league.
Corner three, why not?
To greater understand the impact our Warrior legends had on the game of basketball, we must first look at the civil rights battles that were taking place around them during those tumultuous times.
This is the actual lunch counter that 4 young students walked into February 1, 1960 at the F.W. Woolworth lunch counter.
The Greensboro 4 knew that the only way to gain equality would be to take a cue from the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and stage their very own nonviolent protests.
They sat down at this counter that used to be a whites-only lunch counter and requested a simple cup of coffee. They were denied service, which was to be expected, but they continuously sat, and that was the beginning of our movement called the sit-in movement.
Leading significant change is never easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever is. That is why change usually comes about when a group of people band together and fight for a common goal.
It took a heroic amount of courage to muster up to walk from the campus of A&T to the F.W. Woolworths. These young men could have been killed. They knew that it was going to take some major nerves to walk in here and sit down and request service at a whites-only lunch counter.
These courageous young men were students at North Carolina A&T, a well-known African-American university that has produced many historical figures, including our very own Alvin Addles, who was also a student at the time.
You know, he was coming along during a very tumultuous time in our country, but a time of change and a time of change for the better. And a matter of fact, a lot of athletes went back the next day to the Woolworth counter and joined the A&T 4, Greensboro 4. It became the start of the modern day civil rights movement. He was right in the heat of that. He saw it, he witnessed it right up front. He saw how young people can make a difference when they let their voice be heard.
Challenging the norm was something innate to the young Alvin Addles as he chased his dream of one day playing in the NBA.
Coming from a historically black college, you know, he had an opportunity, he took advantage of it, and he went on to do great things, and he did the same thing when he became the head coach and won an NBA championship.
Alvin Addles isn't the only Warrior with deep North Carolina ties. The very first African-American to play for the Warriors, Jackie Moore, resides in his home outside of Charlotte.
I played with the Warriors. I started 54 to 57. I started with them, played with them. Second year, won the title in 55, 56.
Jackie Moore was the first African-American to play on several teams throughout his basketball career, and he still remembers the early battles of breaking down the NBA's color barrier.
It was hard not being accepted. Yes, being called the N-word often, especially like different places that we went to, even in the North and in the West. Very often I was called, the name came out, they would holler, "You don't belong here." What do you do? Get back into the woods, or things like that came out. I even got it from some ball players. "You don't belong here, you need to be down south to the black schools." It was angering, but like I said, I was taught this, just ignore it, leave it alone, don't start anything, because basically that's what they want you to do. And so you just try to ignore it and walk away from it and leave it alone.
We have come a long way on the backs of many pioneers, but there's always more progress on the horizon as we strive to achieve equality for all. To know where you're going, you must first know where you've been. On behalf of the Golden State Warriors, we'd like to invite you to celebrate Black History with us by visiting warriors.com/Black History.